So welcome to our roundtables. As always, we have our information, our ground rules, if you will. I'm going to ask that, if you keep your microphones muted until it's time to come off of mute. Still, so there's no background noise. We really encourage you to listen deeply so we can understand. That's something we always talk about in support group leader training, listening deeply. And really understand and try and figure out where people are coming from. Embrace this time with yes and, in other words, yes, I have Parkinson's, or I'm a care partner to someone with Parkinson's, but there's so many other things I have going on, like being a support group leader. And of course, be willing to listen and move with one step forward, one step further. When you hear a good idea, run with it. And of course, be patient with technology because it's only great when it actually works. Like right now, as my slides are not advancing. Okay, so today's chat storm, everybody who knows me knows that I do love to read. So when you were in school, were you a fan of summer reading? Or if not, like what were your favorite books? And so, because I just think it's June, it's the start of summer. And I do remember my 12th grade English teacher, this is when over the summer, he assigned us a prayer for Owen Meany. And this is where I got to know John Irving and kind of fall in love with him. And I've now read all of his books, and some are definitely better than others, but Owen Meany remains one of my most favorite books. So were you a fan of summer reading? What are some of your favorite books? Kelly's read a ton of mystery novels during the summer. Yep, me too. But I also do the beach reads like Ellen Hildebrand and stuff, because sometimes you just want some light reading. Who else? Oh, Karen, Jodi Picoult. As an educator, I love to read. I enjoy Jodi Picoult. I love her too, but she can be very heavy sometimes. So I have to read a book and then take a break. But I do love the way I really get to understand who she, I get the other points of view. Agatha Christie, Chop Wood, Carry Water. Ooh, never heard that. The Oxbow Incident. Nancy Drew, love Where the Crawdads Sing. That was incredible. Bernard's filling his time with sci-fi novels. Helena loves historical romance. Joanna Lindsay was one of my favorites. Huge reader any season. Violin Conspiracy. That was incredible. And I understand his new book is even better if that's possible. And then we have some Jules Verne to read. So thanks everybody for sharing. I'm going to have to save my chat so I can copy down some of these good ideas. So now, one of the things we talk about in support group leader training is you don't have to have all the answers as a support group leader, and that's okay. And so today's topic, I assure you, I do not have answers on. I wanted to do it because it was something that people had discussed wanting to hear more about. But as you see, I'm one of those people who says you can't spell salad without sad. I'm really happiest eating cookies, so you don't want to get your nutrition information from me. But that being said, people asked about it. So naturally, I turned to Calissa because she's more into nutrition than I am. And she pointed me in some good directions, so I'm very grateful. And so one of the things to kind of focus on is the relationship of gut health and Parkinson's. I did find, and I'll show you how I found some of this, there's growing focus, which I'm sure you're aware of, the development between the gut and the development of Parkinson's disease. And this, again, something when I came up with this, I really wasn't looking to do a lecture. I just kind of wanted to give everybody some topics that could be discussed by some experts if you wanted to have some speakers. So this was one of them. If you're wondering how I came across this, it was in the Journal of Parkinson's Disease. And if my slides would advance. Okay.
Is the little arrows down at the bottom not working?
There we go. Yes, thank you.
Try those.
I went to the PubMed. If you, Kelly's going to put this into the chat. You can actually search by relevant topic and subject. So for example, Parkinson's and nutrition, and that's how I got this information. Now this, I actually do know a little bit about. I had the pleasure of working with a wonderful nurse practitioner when I was at USF. And so one of the things that comes up is about, you know, protein and Parkinson's. And again, that's just a great topic to discuss. But it's like whether you take your medication 30 minutes or 60 minutes before, or 60 minutes or 2 hours after. The reason I have this particular picture up is when she was describing it to me, what she explained is the reason that the protein can affect how quickly your body processes it is that there's a tiny area in the small intestine that processes your cinnamate and your protein. And so what she said is that if you just ate, you know, a hamburger, you have like 1,000 protein molecules from that hamburger, but then 100 from cinnamate. And, you know, only so much can be processed. So I just had this vision of Lucy and Ethel in the candy factory. And yes, Terry made fun of me and she was like, only you could turn everything into candy. But it was sort of that same idea that you're just kind of, you know, grabbing the candy as it comes down the conveyor belt and too much is happening that it just doesn't process it. And it's not like that for everybody, but for people who it is, they're aware of it. So again, this is something else that could be discussed. Obviously, everyone talks about the healthy, colorful plate. You know, you don't really want the beiges and the whites of, you know, bread, and you want the leafy greens and all of that stuff that, quite frankly, I hate. But that is supposed to be better for you. And they kind of talked about the superfoods that really enhance your, you know, your well-being, the citruses, the pomegranates, kale, you know, squash, blueberries, all of these are really good for brain health, which brings us to the MIND diet. It's a combination of the DASH, the hypertension diet, and the Mediterranean diet. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. It focuses more on plant-based foods, limiting animal brain foods. Again, I encourage you to look up MIND diet and find out some information on it. Eating 3 servings of whole grains and vegetables. Again, a real part of this is cooking things in olive oil instead of butter. You don't have to cut out the meats, but you do want to eat them sparingly and have more protein pack like beans and legumes to, you know, so you're not becoming protein deficient. Daily snacks are nuts and berries, things like that. And then, of course, we did some programs on this. Kelly is going to put them in the chat, how you can link to them. So we did one in 2022, what to eat and what not to eat. If you want to look into that one, you can share that with your group. We also did food is medicine. The first one was in February of 2022. This one was in March of 2022. Again, Kelly's going to put that in the chat so you can always link to that. And then we had one this year, same person, What to Eat 2.0. And again, just really good information, a lot more thorough than I could be. And so really, who can present on this topic? So you can either kind of do what I did, where you sort of just touch on some things and people might have a discussion and say, hey, I heard this, or this worked for me. But otherwise, I would encourage you to get the experts, nutritionists. If you wanted to speak to the advanced practice providers like the physician's assistants and the nurse practitioners and said, hey, could you please present on what diet might help or hinder your Parkinson's? Obviously, gastroenterologists, most exercise instructors. Calissa really did guide me in this presentation because this is not my wheelhouse. Or you can also ask your neurologist or movement disorder to present on something like this. And so what I really want you to kind of talk about is, have you covered this topic in your group? Who was your speaker? Did you learn anything you'd like to share in your groups and stuff? So we're gonna put you guys in chat. It's about 45 minutes or so to chat. It's about 12:15 right now. And I see Bob has raised his hand. Bob, do you have a question? Do you want to come off mute? You're on mute right now.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you for hosting us today. I just want to share something very brief. About a year and a half ago, I participated in an NIH pilot study on the possibility of a ketogenic diet in Parkinson's, based on research for epileptic children who were refractory on the medicine. It saved some of their lives. Keto is hard to do. My wife was opposed to it, but when she heard that the NIH alcoholic mice, when withdrawn with keto diet, were less grumpy and more flexible than the non-keto alcoholic mice, she said, well, maybe you should try it. There's two ways you can do it, either through nutritional ketosis, high-fat diet, or through extended endurance exercise with intermittent fasting. I know people that are doing it and they have reduced their motor symptoms remarkably well. Just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Appreciate that. And so I also do see some things in the chat. Again, thank you, Lori. She posted a website that you can do because they did something. So I also, as always, encourage you to save your chats. If you click on the 3 dots on the bottom of your chat, you can save your chat that way. Right now, we are going to go into Karen saying that the keto diet has worked for her. So clearly there's something to it. We're going to go into your breakout rooms. Again, we're going to come back around 1 o'clock. So have a solid, 1 o'clock Eastern time, have a solid 45 minutes to talk to each other and see what you guys have done as far as this topic. Or as usual, if you choose to talk about something else, that's okay too. This is your group. You don't have to do anything. Kelly's going to put you into groups. Everyone.
This meeting is being recorded.
Back, everyone. So my burning question is, did people actually talk about nutrition, or was it like, nah, that was interesting, but we talked about a bunch of other stuff? I see, agree with that. Yep, we talked about a bunch of other stuff, and that's cool. So let's get started. If we could get some sharing back, we're going to do start with room 1 with Barb, Glenn, Mary Jane, Nancy, Perry, and Roger. Oh, we got some social people in this group, so I expect everyone to come off mute, really. Who wants to share what was discussed?
I think we covered a wide range of topics, Eden, and Bernard was the one who was really kind of facilitating, but he had to step out. At the end, what we were really talking about was the importance of the recognition of the care partner in the successful care of a person with Parkinson's, and advocating for that right from day one. We did discuss different diets that different people have tried or are utilizing. We talked about tube feed and the issues that may come up with that, the importance of dysphagia 1 diet and what that looks like if you're compromised. I did bring up, and I will just share with you, that waiting 30 minutes is not a protocol that I'm familiar with. For us, it's you dose, you wait 2 hours, then you eat, then you wait 1 hour. So you're working in a 4-hour window in order to make sure that those meds truly get down to the jejunum, the uptake point for utilization. And then we talked also about spreading out the protein or putting it at the end of the day so that it doesn't get picked up by the jejunum in competition with the meds, because it will go before the meds will. And I shared a situation where my husband was at a restaurant and we ate a lot of protein, and he just face planted right into the table when the bill came. And he was very functional, drove us up to Riverside. We were from Redlands. We were from San Diego. And I had absolutely no idea what had happened. I thought he was drunk. I mean, he acted like he was drunk, but we hadn't had anything to drink. And we literally had to, drag him out of the restaurant. And when I then went back to the neurologist, he just laughed when I told him what he'd eaten. He goes, "Oh, you OD'd him on protein." And I'm like, what? And, John had Parkinson's for a while, but this was the first time it happened to come up as a result of a problem rather than learning about it ahead of time. So anyway, wide range of discussion on the topic. And then, as I said, at the end, really focusing on the role of the care partner in advocating for both with regards to obviously diet and other issues that present for a person living with Parkinson's. Anybody else in our group want to chime in?
Yes. You have to be your own best advocate. The second most important person is your care partner. And I buy a digital recorder to record every doctor, every specialist visit, and build a history, because you can't remember it all. But write down everything. And just because you're an MD does not make you an expert. Your history of success or failure is what gives you credibility. And if a doctor won't listen, new doctor. I'm done.
From that. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else want to come off mute and share?
I think they covered it all. Good reporting.
Thank you, group 1. And then in group 2, we have Carol, we have Helena, we have Judy, we have Carl, we have Laura, we have Naomi, and we've got Sarah. Again, we got a social group here. Who wants to come off mute and share?
I can.
Okay.
So we had a lot of good discussion. We talked about nutrition and the different ways, sometimes how we could save time to prepare for meals by heading things up and storing it, as like in containers that are tight containers to help save time during the week. And we also talked about sweet tooth, because a lot of us share that we love chocolate or we have a sweet tooth. And we also talked about dark chocolate as being a little better than all the other kind of sugary stuff. And a couple of people showed us some things with blueberries and dark chocolate, but we also found that it's important to read labels, because even though it's blueberries and chocolate, when you read the label, it just has flavor, blueberry flavor. So you have to read what and how much sugar is in it, or, what you're actually putting in your mouth. We talked about the NeuroDerm pump, because I'm on that. And when you're on that, it's subcutaneous, and it flows in evenly. So when on the pump, you don't have to worry about the timing of when you're taking or having protein or not, unless you're taking additional Cinemat. We also talked a little bit about support group meetings, sharing stories, because each person is different, has their own story. And, each person is different with what their symptoms are. So just hearing the different stories at a support group. And then we had one person in our group that was very creative So when it comes to different symptoms or things that's going on, they like showed a thing for constipation, or it was really cute. So if that person wants to speak up or show anything, go ahead. But is there anything else from our group, you guys?
We also discussed dominators in the support group and how to take care of them as best possible without hurting their feelings, and also getting what you want out of a support group.
And what did you guys come to a consensus about getting what you want out of a support group? Is that maybe being the leader so you can direct it a little bit more? What was the consensus with that?
We didn't go too deep into that, though.
Okay, you're just kind of like, that was an issue, like, you know, people taking over the group, or
right.
You know, how to, okay, so understood. Just something that you kind of talked about in terms of you're aware of as support group leaders, and you know, that's something that can be difficult that has to be addressed in the group.
Yes.
Okay.
I think a little part of that was the comparison between how to handle that in a in-person support group versus a Zoom support group, and how much more difficult it is on Zoom to manage the people. And I know you know that, Eden. It's a lot harder to redirect a person without hurting their feelings when you're on Zoom. It's a little more finesse required, I think. And I want Laura to have some time to show her stuff, so I'm going to shut up.
Yes, I want Laura to show her stuff too.
Or this is the you're on mute, but this is the peer pressure your mother warned you about.
Okay, this is Naomi said she felt tight. So this is tidy and heavy. This one, oh, the constipation is poopy, of course. He's not happy. I feel like this is stiffy. My right hand is always like that, and my neck is stiff. This is pain. Pain. It can be blunt and it can be sharp. So I got all kinds of, and we talked about denial when you don't want to know about Parkinson's. So these are my, so that's some of my stuff.
Thank you for sharing, but I like how you've kind of, in a fun way, really just demonstrated kind of like I like the mallet for pain, that it's like it can be sharp or it can be dull, but
yeah,
I like, yeah.
And I'm thinking about razors for really sharp pain. That was too violent. And guess what? I also have, when you want to talk about something that's very natural and we all have to deal with it. This is Ricky, rest in peace. Because Rippy's a character in our lives too. And we cannot avoid him or her. So those are like I like to represent things. I like to name things.
So I love what you did. Seriously, but I also appreciate that you're like, sometimes we have to have a discussion, and that's where Rippy comes in, and nobody wants to have the discussion, but you're right. It's part of what everybody deals with.
And he's not scary, is he? Yeah. This was, by the way, one of our cats. We cremated her, so this was her. Before we spread her on the porch.
Sharing that with us, Laura. That was incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from group 2? Although that's going to be hard to top. So now I feel sorry for group 3 because now they got to top that. We have Betsy, we have Corey, we have David Cox, we have Nell, we have Susan, and we have Tim. Anybody like to come off mute and chat, talk about what you want to talk about? Your group? Again, I'll call on people.
I can speak if others want to listen and then chime in. We spoke somewhat about the MIND diet, and I don't think any of us were super familiar with it. And so there's some curiosity there. And we talked about past trials at different speakers about nutrition, and just spent a lot of time brainstorming about what type of speaker would be effective and what the format, what might be most successful. And we also talked about icebreakers, icebreaker games that we could use that would maybe be customized to diet. And we talked about, someone mentioned this or that, where someone's choosing chocolate and vanilla, or it could be, nutrition or exercise, as a way to kind of find commonalities in the group. Someone mentioned a bingo meme generator as being a really good icebreaker, where you can kind of customize the cards to different topics relative to, different health issues. And most of our group was doing their support groups in person. And a few of us had some online still happening. And we talked of how to make a conversation about dietitians or dietary concerns fun and engaging. And maybe talked about sort of doing it in like a cooking class format where you do, I had suggested maybe do an online presentation about the MIND diet, and where we send out recipe ideas, and then the next in-person support group, people could bring a dish if they were able to, do some cooking and share what they had made as a way to make it more tangible and social too. Anybody else want to chime in on the different things we talked about?
The one thing, hi everybody. One thing that I wanted to bring up is Lori, who had to leave, mentioned that she had posted a cartoon in, and help me out with this, Nell, if you remember, or Tim or David, or the ladies. She put a cartoon in for us, a little in the chat, did she, or in the email? Do you remember?
I think it was in the chat, and I thought it was on carbidopa levodopa, but she said it was very funny and she was laughing by the end of it.
Right, yeah, and she put it in the chat because I've looked in the chat. There. I didn't, the only thing I saw in the chat, and you guys can look because I might be looking at it and not knowing it. Maybe it was her email or her, maybe it was her website, because it was LD, it was from somebody, Lori DePorter was her name.
Yeah, I'm actually putting I wrote it down, so I'm putting it in the chat for everybody.
Okay, thank you. Because I wanted to share that because she got such a kick out of it at the end, like Nell said. And so it'd be fun to share. Now, whether or not we all think it's funny, I don't know. I'm sure it's going to be just great. Have you guys ever participated or looked on, when I used to look at Facebook, there's a Parkinson's site there. And is it Parkinson's humor or jokes of Parkinson's, and not jokes, but there. Have any of you guys looked on that? Funny stories of Parkinson's patient. I mean, no. I swear it's out there. Oh, you have, Judy? Thank you. I am not alone.
I actually just listened to Mitch Fail. I think that's his last name. I just sent the video.
Yeah. Yeah.
to Eden and to Clemmy. He does
Blame it on the Parkinson's.
He what?
Blame it on the Parkinson's.
Blame it on the Parkinson's.
Oh, blame on. Oh, I think it's called, the one I'm thinking of is like Laugh with Parkinson's, I think.
Oh.
Okay, blame it on the Parkinson's. I'm gonna go look at it.
Hysterical.
Blame it on. Cool, thank you. Today is one of those days, you guys. I mean, I don't know. This is the first time I've been on here in a long time, but I gotta tell you, today is a hard day for me mentally. And that's not usually the case. So blame it on the Parkinson's, like sounds like something fun, something that I can get lifted up over. Yeah, so I appreciate that. I just appreciate you guys being here. And yeah.
In the chat so people can help themselves. Anything else from group 3 before we go to group 4?
I have a question. It says nothing to do. How do you save your chat? I never mind. You told me. I remember now. The 3 dots.
3 dots on the bottom, right by the smiley face.
Gotcha. Okay. Sorry. Go ahead. No more.
Room 4? No, we want people to interact. Is Bill, Kai, Karen, and Lauren who'd like to come off mute?
I took some notes, and just for the interest of time, I'll try to keep it short. Let's see. We got into the weeds a little bit with the diet stuff. We heard from Bob, who recapped some more of his experience in the NIH trial. Unfortunately, he had to leave, or he'd be here now. We discussed ways of raising this topic in our support groups. And, do you do it with an expert speaker? It seems like many of us are doing it more as a, this is my experience kind of story. That's how it's being shared. Referring people to information, archived webinars at PMDA and Michael J. Fox are some good sources of information on this. Kai warned that the videos can run pretty long and that it's best to probably break those up over maybe another 2 support group meetings or something and leave time for discussion. And we also went over some tips on apps that might be helpful. And I think some of those are in the chat already. These are like symptom trackers that you can use with like an Apple Watch or something. I don't know much about them, so I can't speak about them authoritatively, but there's one called ProPD Score, ProPD, Pro-PD. There's one called Stride PD. Some of you are probably already familiar with these, but that's the 90-second summary.
Else want to come off and add to that? You did a good job representing the group.
Sun City. Oh.
What were you going to say? People did put some other things though in the chat. Great humor by Yuma Bev. And so we definitely want, everybody to always take that away. Anybody have any final thoughts or questions today? Because we still do have a little bit of time left. Yes, Nancy. You're on mute.
One of the things that I just realized I'd shared with the group that I'd like to share with everyone, and this involves if you say I've had surgery, you've been NPO, nothing by mouth, you're coming back off. My husband had some difficulty with hospital dietitians giving him liquids to drink and food to eat that immediately made him throw up. I said to our group, not unlike in the Survivor, when you've been out in the woods eating weeds, and suddenly you hit a town and hit a hamburger shop and eat a hamburger and throw up. And to finally resolve that, I had a friend who is a Chinese practitioner who shared with me making a congee, and I used it for the rest of John's life. Anytime his swallowing became compromised, but he was still safe to eat orally, you take broth. It could be chicken or vegetable broth. You take rice, white potato, sweet potato, peeled, put them all in a pot and cook it down until it's a porridge. You can thin or thicken it with the broth to the consistency that's safe to ingest. And then over time, as the person tolerates, you could add bits of chicken or protein. John had had a loop twisted bowel with a colon resection, and 5-6 days out after being nothing by mouth, they gave him Concord grape juice to drink, which he immediately threw up. Yes, this is a hospital. Yes, this is dietary recommendation. And then they gave him lasagna, which he immediately threw up. And you can imagine what that feels like on a bowel that has been completely resected with a huge incision across the abdominal wall. So I had called her and she said, Nancy, this is what you need to do. I simply said to the physician, write orders that I'm in charge of his food. And he did. And then that's what I brought in. And she said he could eat it breakfast, lunch, or dinner. That worked beautifully. And I always kept some on hand, frozen in a small containers. I'd make up a big batch and then make up small containers of it and then use that. The other thing I would say is that if you have swallowing issues, please pay attention to what you are eating. I had a friend who was a nurse whose husband came home having had aspiration pneumonia, not uncommon with Parkinson's. He had swallowing difficulty. I mentioned going on to Duopa in order to address both the oral meds getting into him and the food, and he didn't want to. He choked to death on pizza. Okay. So just be aware, there are ways that you can modify diet to accommodate swallowing, but you want to make sure that you're safe to swallow. And tube feed is not the end of the world. I have friends who, as professionals, have been on tube feed because they don't have a bowel that works correctly. So it's possible. And if anybody ever has any questions about it, John did end up going on tube feed for 2 out of 3 meals a day when eating took up so much time and energy that it would have consumed his waking hours. And so he had breakfast by tube feed, dinner by tube feed, and I ate a completely normal lunch. So just in terms of full picture of diet. Normal lunch, except not for stringy things that would, he might choke on.
Thank you so much for sharing, Nancy. I'm sure this is not easy, but we appreciate you giving this information because it's quite valuable.
I have to leave right now, but thank you very much for all the information and just the interaction. I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Save your chat. And then I do want to remind everybody, we are going to have another program in a half hour with Dr. Ospina. Bring your questions, or if you'd like, real quick, if you can't make that program, but you have questions, if you want to type them in the chat, I'll try and ask them for you. And so this way you can maybe at least follow up and see what you can do. And, you can always watch the program, but, we really encourage everybody, if you can come. I think it's going to be an incredible program because Dr. Ospina is just a lovely individual that we get to ask all these questions of.
Yeah.
So if you want to put something in the chat for me, or hopefully I'll see you later. Carol, you have a question?
I didn't get the message about Dr. Ospina today. How do I get into that today?
It's in the chat if you do the live stream. Do you see in the chat where Kelly put it? Or I can email you the link.
Okay, if you could email it.
Okay. I can email you the link.
I think maybe the email about it went out a little bit later today than is usual because I saw mine come through just like an hour ago. And usually it's like really early in the morning. So I think that might be part of it too.
I'll look through and maybe it's there. Thank you. Okay.
What is she talking about?
We have a program today with Dr. Ospina, Ask the Doctor.
Oh, okay.
And so you can get on our website. Kelly also put the link there to register. But if you go on our website, pmdalliance.org, hover over the programs tab and do register for a program. But, you know, or if you want, you give me if you tell me who, you know, hey, Eden, can you send me the link? Like I'm going to just go ahead and send Carol the link. We can do that as well. I just think it's going to be a great program. Dr. Ospina is just.
She is superb.
Yeah, she is superb. And so,
hey, Eden,
you know, yes.
I noticed the problem with, I just did that and I registered, but it doesn't give me the link. It brings up another email that says register.
Okay. I will go ahead and send you the link too, Judy.
Yeah, I just keep getting invited to register instead of. Oh, here, wait, maybe I have it. I have it here. I just got the link.
Oh, there you go.
It did come, just took a while. Okay.
And for this next program, I recommend always having no paper. The meetings as well as every doctor. Keep a running record of notes close so you can refer back to them.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, Dr. Ospina is fantastic. So if you can listen in, I recommend her highly.
Would you send a link to me too, please?
Etsy? Okay, I will do that.
Thank you.
Of course. Well, everybody, hopefully I will see you soon. And if not, hopefully I will see you again shortly at another support group leader roundtable, and I will be emailing all this information tomorrow. And I look forward to seeing everybody soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Take care.
Thanks, you too. Thanks, everyone.